sale needs to happen in 91 days. Yeah.
Sorry, I just can't see. I see copy notice of trustee sale and what?
Notice of default, and that's alternatives to foreclosure letter.
But then at +5.
Oh, this is 5 days.
Uh-huh.
It has to be a statement of breach.
Statement of breach.
Notice of trustee sale. Yeah, statement of breach isn't a big document, so I didn't put it on here. I don't believe.
Okay. I'm just trying to get everything down. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so what am I looking for when I review this? I'm looking for the chain of parties. I want to make sure mortgage electronic registration didn't just pop up and now we've gone from Bank of America, now we've got Citywide, and then next thing you know, Regional Trustee Services out of Washington, Oregon's in the mix, and then somebody else is in the mix, and then somebody else is in the mix. You know, I look for that continuity of parties. And, you know, what they're doing, what they've been doing, is originally they started foreclosing in the name of Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, MERS. Well, then they realized, yeah, I mean, that's not such a good idea. So now they started foreclosing in the trustee's name. Well, you know, maybe that's not such a good idea either. So then they went to the bank's name. Well, now they're thinking ahead again. Now they're going into the trust's name that owns the, quote, owns the notes. And they're skipping going from MERS to the servicer to the trustee to blah, blah, blah. They're skipping those things. And this is why there's now a lawsuit in Louisiana where they're talking about racketeering. It's a RICO suit because they've been missing all these things. And down there, they're thinking they're liable, that the servicers are liable for about $1 billion in recording fees. Not a bad day's work. So the attorneys are on that one. So we got to talk to AG here, see if we can get that going. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of red flags that I see. I hear people talking about these things, and man, the hackles on the back of my neck go up. And I won't let people talk about these things at my meetings. These are red flags. If you hear things like, "Oh, pay us before we give you the result," figure it's a scam. If somebody that guarantees that they can stop your foreclosure, that's a red flag. If somebody guarantees that you're going to get a loan modification, that's a red flag. Somebody says, "We're going to fire the trustee," that's a red flag. If they say, "We're going to file a UCC1 lien," you know, run for the hills. Or "We're going to capture the straw man." No, we're not going there either. We're going to do a notary presentment for you. I know these things are terms you may never hear, you may not have heard them, but believe me, a homeowner is going to get some phone calls and they're going to start hearing these things. Notary presentment. Oh, you know, we'll just flip out a little A for V over to the IRS and they'll pay off the whole loan. That's accepted for value. That's not going to happen. Administrative process, that's a bunch of paperwork, and I'm going to tell you some of these are criminal. And we're starting to see some criminal charges on some of these. Adverse possession, that's where you move into some house that you don't own, and you say, "Oh yeah, I'm openly, you know, living here, and I'm letting all the neighbors know, and oh, I'm going to get the title." And then you start going in for quiet title and the deed and all that kind of stuff. And then you want to fight the mortgage, the note. That's bad news. Fractional co-ownership, this is where I own my house, and I'm like, no, what if I gave 1% of my house to these people over here, and then they went and filed bankruptcy? Well, now my house is tied up in bankruptcy, and it's not in my name that the bankruptcy is, but it's securing me so I can stay here for a long period of time. I'm telling you, these people have stayed up late to think of these things.
If someone does declare bankruptcy in the midst of a foreclosure, does that actually stop the foreclosure though?
Yep, I got that coming right up. Okay. Okay, so what are your defenses? This whole thing for me and writing that letter that's 11, 12 pages for a homeowner, that's intimidation. And I'll tell you, intimidation works. I lived in my house for 40 months without making a payment before I actually had to go to court. And intimidation was all I used. 40 months. It's a little bit tougher these days, but it can be done. There's some people out there that actually know a lot, like me, that can help you stay for a long time. Okay, so how do you do it? You hold them to account for, you know, the process, the trustee sale process. And the other thing is you can use a qualified written request. This is a study that I'm making right now. I did a class on QWRs last Tuesday night, and I'm going to follow up with another class on QWRs this coming Tuesday. That's going to go down and really put the meat into the QWR. You can file a lawsuit. and you can try to get a temporary restraining order. But in Arizona, to get a TRO, you have to get it by 5 p.m. the day before your sale. If you didn't get your TRO by 5 p.m. the day before your sale, we'll talk about the problems that that creates. But that's when you have to get your temporary restraining order, TRO. 5 p.m. the day before. And what you want from this is you want to get a preliminary injunction which says, okay, a TRO is good for 10 days in Arizona. That's it. So on the 101st day, if you got a TRO, you didn't do anything else, we're going to run you down. And they can foreclose on it. But you want to extend that 10 days with what's called a preliminary injunction. And the preliminary injunction gets you a court date. And while you're at the court date, you're going to try to turn the preliminary injunction into a permanent injunction. So you can have a full lawsuit. I'm going to tell you, judges are not giving up TROs very easily these days. I don't care if you're an attorney or a pro se litigant, they are just not rolling out the TROs like they used to. Okay. So that's that. Now, Joe had asked bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a magic thing. If you file a bankruptcy, and let's say your sale's at 2 p.m., and you file it at 1:59 p.m. on this day, you have an automatic stay. And if they had the sale, they have to undo it because you are protected under the United States Federal Code of Bankruptcy, and you had an automatic stay. Now, an automatic stay stays in place. It just stays there. And it stays the sale. It keeps the sale away from happening. And it just moves along and moves along, and you're in your bankruptcy, and somebody actually has to progressively come to the court and say, I want you to lift the stay and allow us to have the sale. So they'll come in with a motion to lift the stay. And they don't always get it. Sometimes they get it. You know, if you're diligently working through your bankruptcy, which I'm not right now, but I still have to stay, the judge may keep your stay in place. But if the judge has had enough of you and says, you know what, they deserve the house, he'll lift the stay and make it foreclose.
How did you get that stay? The automatic stay?
Automatic stay is automatic. I went down and I beat the clock. I actually beat it by about 10 minutes, I think. But I got my automatic stay, and after I got my stay, say I got mine at 150 or whatever, I walked over to where they were having the auction, and I presented it to the guy, and I said, hey, got a bankruptcy here. So he runs over, gets his cell phone, calls the service, and hey, guy says he just filed bankruptcy. Call the court and find out. So they called the court and found out, and they postponed my sale.
Oh, okay.
Actually, so they postponed my sale for the stay. So that went for a couple of months, maybe 5 or 6 months, and then recently, December, they actually went in and canceled this. So I've actually had 3 of these canceled. You can get them canceled, but it's hard. It's a lot of work.
Was it canceled because of the bankruptcy, or?
You know, it's. I do so much. It's hard to tell. I'm on them. I'm really on them. So it's a little hard to tell. I've got lots of things going on, and I think they know that I'm out here teaching as much as I am, and I know that the word is that the banks are on Neil Garfield's conference calls, and I do his conference calls sometimes. If Neil's not feeling well because he's had heart surgery, he'll call me up and he'll go, hey, can you do a conference call this afternoon? I'm like, well, what do you want to talk about? Talk about this. I'm like, okay. So without preparation, I can get these phone calls to do nationally for 90 minutes with people from all over the country. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what they're up to. But I figure I've got a number, and my number is for a federal accident. So if I don't show up for a whole bunch of weeks in a row, you know, the feds called my number. Somebody called my number. And I just figure that's one of those things. Okay, so you get an automatic stay. In bankruptcy, you can file Chapter 13, which says, hey, I'm going to work out my payments. You know, I'm willing to make payments over 30 or 60 months and get things worked out. Or I want to go Chapter 7. And Chapter 7 is where, you know, let's just get rid of these debts. Now, I have a philosophy about bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a great cleanup tool. So, If I was mucking around with all this stuff, unless I absolutely had to, I would not file bankruptcy until like the very last thing. Because if you file a lawsuit, you go in and you get all mucked up with the courts and stuff like that. The judge could, at the end of the day, go, you know, that's really nice, but your attorney's fees, you're liable for $20,000. So that's a nasty thing. So you want to have a Chapter 7 available, so you can go to your Chapter 7 and deposit this over your Chapter 7 and say, and I'm including that $20,000 in attorney fees in the Chapter 20 or the Chapter 7, and I want to get rid of it. And it's possible that you can. And by the way, people are starting to get rid of student loans in Chapter 7s too. It's a lot of work, but it can be done. There's like 3 provisions you have to meet if you want to get them out like regularly, but other people are getting them removed just by being diligent and putting forth a very good argument. I have a personal friend who got over $225,000 of student loans removed. Gone. Chapter 7. All right. Professional help. Nonprofit organizations.
With
Joe.
the bankruptcy, you still lose your house.
You're still in your house during the bankruptcy, absolutely.
In the house.
Huh?
Bankruptcy's over. They still come and they want their money.
Well, how did you get discharged from your bankruptcy? What happened?
No,
in
I've
your
never been
bankruptcy?
through bankruptcy, so I'm just saying.
What happened? It gets decided in the bankruptcy. Now, let's say I came in here, I used up my Chapter 13. That's what I filed. This time was a Chapter 13 to make payments, which I seem to be forgetting those payments. And actually, I don't owe anybody any money except for the servicer anyway. So Chapter 13, I'm working this out. And now, let's say I'm out of bankruptcy. But now they come back and they decide they want to foreclose again, and I want to use the bankruptcy to stop foreclosure. Well, I can file a Chapter 7, but it would be my second bankruptcy, and if it's within a year, I'm only going to get a 30-day stay. That's all I'm going to get, 30 days of protection from the bankruptcy court. Now, if it was more than a year, I'd get a full automatic stay all over again for however long it took them to get the stay lifted. So there's all kinds of these little nuancy type things that go on here. Okay, you get professional help, nonprofit organizations, there's plenty of those around. I mentioned NACA, NACA. I like what he does. I don't agree with the philosophy of where he ends up leaving people because he leaves them owing a lot of money. But for some people that may be a good thing just to get the kids out of school, or, you know, you got a sick parent or an elderly that's going to pass away soon, so you just need time. You know, you don't want to move them. You know, there's reasons to suffer with a lousy loan modification, so you might take it. Arizona Department of Housing has a very interesting program if you're underemployed or not employed. There's a lady that comes to my group, her name's Maureen, she comes down from Cottonwood, and she actually got some of that $260 million that Michael Traylor is harboring over there at the Arizona Department of Housing, and she's on some type of low or underemployed type relationship program, and for the first year her payment was $187 to keep her in the house. 187 bucks, and now it's gone up to like 480, but it's still a lot less than what it was. I think she said her payment was about 1,000.
I was gonna say that's even 400 is good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, attorneys, you can hire attorneys. Attorneys are kind of pricey. There is an organization that I actually am involved in and I'm a part of, and that's a co-op. And the co-op is you're a part owner. We have a network of attorneys. Right now we have about a dozen attorneys throughout the country, and we're trying to put people in. To get into the co-op, it looks like we're going to be about $1,500, $500 a month after that, and we will do all of the fighting for you, whether it's documents with paralegals or any title reports that we need or any of that kind of stuff. We do it for the fee, and we'll also go to court. We have attorneys online that will go to court, and they know how to argue the points that we're working on. So I hang around with attorneys a lot.